During its run on HBO, Game of Thrones was praised as one of the greatest shows in the history of television. But it also earned a notorious reputation as one of the darkest shows in the history of television. But its new spin-off, House of the Dragon, is shaping up to be even darker, as revealed by Ryan Corr. Let's find out the details in this video. Make sure you stick with me to the end. Without any further delay, let's get into it. How dark can House of the Dragon be? It's been 3 years since we were last plunged into the violent, blood-drenched world of Game of Thrones. The Oz hit the red carpet for the premiere of House of the Dragon on Tuesday night. In the company of corseted cosplayers and sword-fighting knights, we spoke with Melbourne actor Ryan Corr, who is set to play Ser Harwin Strong in the latest HBO production. Corr is a stalwart of the Australian screen, starring in Packed to the Rafters, Love Child, and more recently, The Secret She Keeps. No doubt, the role that's closest to our Zoomer hearts is his performance as the sun-bleached, spike-haired motormouth Eric Tanner in Blue Water High. On learning he had been cast in House of the Dragon, Corr said it was incredibly exciting and that every now and then in this industry there are these fantasies like he could maybe be a part of that, whether it was a Marvel film or Batman or Game of Thrones. And he confessed that this was one of those. After auditioning vigorously for a myriad of roles, Corr found out he had secured the role of Ser Harwin Strong back home in Sydney. It wasn't his first rodeo with Game of Thrones either, telling us that he had unsuccessfully auditioned for the role of Khaleesi's lover in the original series years prior. Nevertheless, it is the biggest production he has worked on to date, with the series costing HBO a reported $200 million for the first season alone. Corr made it known that House of the Dragon is darker than the original series. He said that it is a departure from the old thrones and was really surprised by the different feel and tone of the show. In House of the Dragon, it's as if you're walking into castles that are 2 levels, with live fire. There are teams of people whose sole job is to keep that fire lit, and there are 20 fires in the Great Hall. There are lamb corpses sitting there on the table. Everything is tangible and in front of you. The world you see on screen is the world you walk into. Everyone is in costume. Everyone's had armor made for them. They've got blades and they've done the training. You're with some of the best actors in the world. House of the Dragon pays homage to where Thrones has come from. This happened 200 years before. It's really about the world that led up to the first Game of Thrones. Ser Harwin Strong, known as Breakbones, is said to be the strongest man in the 7 kingdoms. When asked how it felt to be bestowed with such a title, Corr admitted that he had the body of a 12-year-old diver. The directors told him that they see Ser Harwin essence in him. Corr isn't the only Australian set to star in House of the Dragon. 22-year-old Millie Alcock features significantly, playing a younger Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, the first child of King Viserys Targaryen, a dragon rider with ambitions to rule the 7 kingdoms as the first female monarch. Emma Darcy will play the adult Rhaenyra. Millie Alcock and Emily Carey appear as younger versions of Rhaenyra and Alicent in House of the Dragon. Corr said of his co-star that he watched Millie, who carried the series on her shoulder, go over there with such enormous pressure and deal with it with such grace, and lead the team to what they have got today. Next up, let's talk about complaints to HBO about the darkness of many scenes in House of the Dragon. Many Game of Thrones fans may have experienced deja vu while watching last night's episode of HBO's prequel series House of the Dragon, resulting in outrage from many fans that several scenes were too dark to watch. Game of Thrones sparked a similar backlash during its final season for the episode The Long Night. Both that episode and House of the Dragon episode 7 were directed by Emmy winner Miguel Sapochnik. Many people took to Twitter to express their frustration that the House of the Dragon episode was too dark to watch, with one of HBO's social media accounts going public defending the episode's dark moments as an intentional creative decision. HBO Max's Help account responded to a fan who wrote that the network needs to issue a written apology for literally such a dark episode, saying that they appreciate the fan reaching out about the night scenes in House of the Dragon episode 7 appearing dark on the fan's screen. They added that the dim lighting of the scene was an intentional creative decision. Many fans claimed that the episode was unwatchable because the screen was too dark. Ringer writer-announcer Joanna Robinson tried to warn fans before the episode aired to update their TV settings to make the screen a little brighter, adding that they should watch it with all the curtains drawn. Sapochnik is no stranger to this kind of backlash, given the outrage he faced over the dark scenes in The Long Night. He spoke to IndieWire at the time and defended the creative choice, saying that the dark-lit cinematography was what the show's atmosphere needed. Sapochnik said that it made sense that it was the last hope humanity had, the last beacon of light, and from the perspective of where they needed to go in the story, which was to come to a surreal and chaotic climax, they needed an environment that was most friendly to them. So all the reasons to do it were there, and no one sat there and wondered if it would be too dark. In other news, House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones Season 1, which is better? Despite the two series being set in the same world and part of the same franchise, each series is independent of its counterpart. In fact, House of the Dragon takes place about 200 years before the events depicted in Game of Thrones and, as specified in the prequel's first episode, exactly 172 years before the birth of Daenerys Targaryen, one of the Game of Thrones protagonists. Both series are set in Westeros, with House of the Dragon offering a narrower focus on the Targaryen family and his early death, while Game of Thrones follows multiple story arcs that span different families as they embark on a series of political conflicts for control of the Iron Throne and therefore the Seven Kingdoms. Let's look into the House of the Dragon Season 1 cast and characters versus that of Game of Thrones. Both House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones feature a large cast, consisting of younger, established actors such as Matt Smith, Paddy Considine, and Olivia Cooke for the prequel series, and Sean Bean, Peter Dinklage, and Lena Headey for the original. Both first season feature strong performances and complex, well-rounded characters, as seen in Game of Thrones, as well as the prequel characters, House of the Dragon. One of the strongest suits of both House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones is not only their exceptional cast, but also the presence of grey characters, most of whom are not fully villains or heroes. However, House of the Dragon features a staggering amount of character reworks throughout the season, something that doesn't happen in Game of Thrones, and that has caused some criticism of the prequel for its constantly changing actors who play some of the main characters. What about the story of House of the Dragon Season 1 and that of Game of Thrones Season 1? House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones might be two very separate products, but the story in their respective early seasons seem to mirror each other. In either case, a war of succession is initiated by the death of the current king, Viserys Targaryen in Dragon House, and Robert Baratheon in Game of Thrones. As doubts are cast on the legitimacy and parentage of the heirs to the throne, the sons of the king's daughter, late King Rhaenyra on one side and Robert Cersei's wife on the other. Both also have the same issues, with the first few episodes serving as a setting but resulting in a slower pace in terms of plot. The first season of Game of Thrones is, however, perhaps more successful in creating its many different characters and story arcs while also making its audience care about them, as they all come with big stakes for the characters involved, while House of Dragons has fewer characters and storylines to develop and can therefore result in a less complicated plot for the audience to follow. Though both have their strengths, with Game of Thrones Season 1 setting up storylines that come back in later seasons and House of the Dragon benefiting from beautiful visuals and excellent CGI, House of the Dragon ultimately has an element that Game of Thrones is missing, one that makes its first season the better of the two series. That concludes today's video. If you found the video helpful, please do consider giving us a thumbs up and don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. See you in the next one.